Welcome to the Explainer. So today we're looking at something that honestly might not sound super glamorous right out of the gate, but if you're a developer using Anthropic's CLI coding tool every day, it's absolutely thrilling. We're breaking down Claude Code version 2.1.162. Going through the release notes, this really feels like the ultimate polish update. And why is that? Well, because it's not some massive shiny new feature overhaul. Instead, it's exactly the kind of meticulous plumbing update we actually crave when we're deep in the trenches writing code.
You know, the release notes sum it up perfectly. They call it a dense collection of bug fixes and usability improvements that make day-to-day use more reliable and less noisy. And honestly, that lack of a single giant hype feature, it's a huge positive. When you're living in a CLI tool, friction is your absolute worst enemy. This whole update is just hyper-focused on eliminating that friction, saving you time, and completely cutting out the constant noise that distracts you from your actual work.
Here's our quick roadmap for today. We'll start with a quieter, clearer startup, then move into fixing permissions and commands, followed by upgrading the background agents view, and finally wrap up with some crucial edge case fixes.
Okay, let's dive right into Section 1, a quieter, clearer startup.
Right away, there's immediate relief from those frustrating, noisy hangups when you boot the tool up. Previously, if you happen to have a read-only config directory, the CLI would just silently hang, and there's literally nothing worse than a tool freezing with zero explanation, right? Well, that silent hang has been swapped out for an in-memory config and a clearly visible error message. So now you actually know exactly what's going on. And those super noisy alerts, like the Claude and Chrome-enabled pop-ups that just clutter up your screen, they are completely gone or at least downgraded to really quiet notices. It's just the sound of silence.
But what's really brilliant here is that when warnings do actually need to pop up, they're infinitely more actionable. Notices are now intelligently grouped by severity. The warnings themselves, way shorter, getting right to the point. And the absolute best part is that each warning now comes with a concrete suggested fix. You aren't stuck guessing how to resolve an environment issue anymore. The tool literally tells you it's wrong and exactly how to fix it right out of the gate. Talk about saving immediate troubleshooting time.
Moving right along to Section 2, fixing permissions and commands.
So, in this update, the explicit rule precedence for web fetch is finally corrected. In the past, web fetch explicit rules were actually getting overwritten by pre-approved domains, which was not ideal. But now, the strict hierarchy is properly respected. An explicit deny takes absolute top priority. That's followed by ask and then followed by allow, which can now properly override those pre-approved domains. This is a real game changer because it gives you exact, predictable control over exactly which domains Claude Code can and cannot fetch from.
And that reliability extends right down to the file system, especially for the Windows users out there. Permission rules written with Windows backslashes or mixed case paths were previously just failing to match altogether. That was a massive bug for a huge portion of the user base, and thankfully, it's fixed. Also, if you set a read-deny rule, it actually correctly hides those files from glob and grep results now. And speaking of search, if you use the -- tools flag and explicitly list grep or glob, those names are no longer silently ignored on native builds. They correctly activate the embedded search tools. No more silent failures.
Now, if you've spent any time at all using Claude Code, you've definitely run into this annoyance. In the old autocomplete menu, if you clicked a / command, it just ran instantly. Half the time you weren't even ready, you hadn't added your arguments yet, and bam, it's executing. Seriously frustrating. Well, now clicking simply fills the prompt and waits for you to actually hit enter. It's such a simple little tweak, but it completely resolves a huge shared frustration. Just a massive usability win that puts you back in the driver's seat.
And here's just a really quick, incredibly helpful little detail. The /effort command now actually communicates with you. It explicitly tells you when your chosen effort level will persist as the default for new sessions. This totally removes all the guesswork around your session configurations. You set it once, and you know exactly how the tool is going to behave the next time you boot it up.
Let's jump into Section 3, upgrading the background agents view.
If you run a wide monitor, you're going to be so happy about this one. Previously, the status text for running agents, meaning your tool arguments, the replies, the execution output, it was all arbitrarily cut off between 60 and 120 columns. Long session names were also getting truncated at just 40 characters. Well, now those columns grow dynamically. They actually utilize the full width of your terminal, completely transforming the legibility of your background tasks. You can actually read your tool arguments again. What a concept.
You know that agonizing 5-second stall when you tried to attach to a background session, or when you tried to attach right after a background service restart and it would sometimes literally bounce you straight back to the session list? Yeah,
Well, according to the update, those days are officially behind us. Attachment is now instant and recovery is completely stable. Your workflow just got a whole lot faster.
The workflow guards in this update are just fantastic across the board. If a reply fails to send, it doesn't just vanish silently into the void anymore. Instead, it actively queues up for delivery on your next session start. If a backgrounded session fails because the service can't start, it actually stays visible as a failed row that you can easily recover just by hitting enter. Oh, and one more brilliant addition here. You can finally use Control-V to paste images directly into the dispatch input and the session reply box. It's literally these little quality of life things that ensure your data is never lost and your workflow just stays completely fluid.
All right, let's wrap up with Section 4, Crucial Edge Case Fixes.
Now, I know these are edge cases, but hitting just one of these completely derails your coding flow. First, if you hit the escape key to interrupt a turn at the very start in stream JSON or STK sessions, it used to drop silently. Now it's handled properly. Second, and this is kind of a weird one, they resolved those random API 400 errors that happened if an emoji landed right near a truncation boundary. Third, the LSP tool's workspace symbol operation actually works now. It accepts and passes your query parameters straight to the language server. Fourth, MCP per server timeouts under 1,000 milliseconds were completely flooring to 1 second and aborting all tool calls. Those are now correctly ignored in favor of global defaults. And lastly, running agents with the --JSON flag now includes a waiting for field, so you can see programmatically if a session is blocked on something like a permission prompt. Rapid-fire fixes for sure, but absolutely invaluable for stability.
So, we've walked through the silent startups, the explicit permissions, the dynamic agent views, and all that edge case squashing. The day-to-day friction has just been dramatically reduced. Which brings me to a question for you. With the noise cleared and the bugs finally squashed in your workflow, what are you going to build next, now that nothing is slowing you down?
If you want to dive even deeper and get the absolute most out of Claude Code's optimized environment, as well as the entire rest of Claude's tooling ecosystem, make sure to check out the full manual over at claudemaster.net. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and hey, happy coding!